What does it take to lead in the world of technology and electronics in our beloved auto industry? And how has that changed? To answer this question, we're going to talk to a woman who has been at the forefront of technology in the world of electronics in the auto industry for her entire career. She once led the electrification business at Lear, and she now sits firmly at the top of TE Connectivity as the Vice President and General Manager of the global automotive e-mobility business. Please welcome Qiong Sun. Qiong, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jan. It is truly my pleasure to be here with you.
It's great to have you. So, Qiong, I don't waste any time. I'm going to go right in and ask you, who are you as a leader?
I consider myself a global citizen and an automotive business leader who has a deep passion in driving the cutting-edge technologies towards a safer, cleaner, and more sustainable future. At my core, I am an engineer. I find that the same principles that I use to lead the technical projects successfully are still applicable for me today, lead the business. So that means you always need a solid business strategy and plan that everyone understands and works towards it. As an engineer, I'm wired to always seek the most optimized solution. I've learned it is really critical to be surrounded by talented people from different backgrounds and with a different viewpoint and skill set. So basically, I always try to stay authentic to myself and my strengths.
How do you lead in a technical field? Clearly, you're at the top of your game from a technical standpoint, right? When you see people move from a technical field into a leadership role, that's sometimes hard for them. How did you embrace that, Qiong? And how do you make sure that you bring the people along with you? How do you inspire the people? It's one thing to be good technically and know how to put the business case together, but how do you bring the people along with you? How do you do that with your team?
I always believe you have to have a vision. You have to have a strategy that is clear to all the people working with you on your team, your customers, your suppliers. When you have the common goal, you can put the plan together. This is how you bring people along, especially with the nowadays generation, a newer generation. They're not just go to work for a job and get the pay. They also want to have a purpose. And this is the purpose that we need to, as a leader, bring everybody together.
And how do you do that, Qiong, with your team? Is it an annual thing? Is it a quarterly thing? How do you develop the vision and keep it in front of everybody and keep them motivated?
So this is in everyday business for us. So we do actually have a 5-year strategy that we meet every year to come up with that. And we tune as we go and according to the market, responded to what the market needs is, what the regulation pressure or, even coming from a geopolitical, all kinds of situation. But in the end, when you have those right, it's a plan set and it can be, just never change. And you're going to changing along the way because you got to be agile, adapt to what's going on. But what really showed it up is every day working with your team, right? If you act as an example and make sure that you always service your customer while you deliver the technical solution, always keep in mind that you need to make sure that product is your customer wanted and your customer willing to work with you and that there is a long-term partnership that existing in that area.
There's a lot of talk, Qiong, these days about getting away from legacy systems and processes. You mentioned the word agile, and we know the winners in this industry will be the ones that can master speed. And we have gone from this idea of the way that we designed and produced and think, quite frankly, in traditional legacy auto, and you've grown up with it, you've seen it. But now that type of thinking will not take us into the future. We have got to be able to respond quickly to changes, to needs in the marketplace. We have to be able to develop new products, change new products on a timeline and a speed that we have never been used to before in traditional auto industry. Now, maybe the software business, yes, they get that. So you've got to try and merge together this way of doing business and way of thinking of the software type of company with traditional automotive. How on earth do you do that?
That's a great question, Jen. Our industry currently is really going through unprecedented wave of innovation with a lot of disruptive technology, electrification, connectivity, autonomous driving, software-defined vehicles, digitization, artificial intelligence. All of those, they're rapidly reshaping our industry. But whenever you have so many new things happening at the same time, it comes with a lot of challenge, as you mentioned. One of the challenges that I see is how do you manage these transition of the mega trends and responding to these fast shifting requirements while maintaining profitability and competitiveness. And I believe in order to achieve it, you gotta collaborate with the other players in the ecosystem. Collaboration is really the key to win, because the ecosystem is really expanding from government, utility company, infrastructure providers, and to the tech industries for electrification. We see battery, consumer electronics, software. And most importantly, let's also don't forget about our consumers. We need to engage them, listen to them, and figure out what they want. And a part of those is how to bring the public knowledge and educate them that they understand the advantage of these technology and why they are good for the consumers and why they are good for the society. So when you have those, right, how do you actually go faster as you asking about it? And I think that these collaboration will help you to understand that. And that allows you to design and develop the product that is modular as a platform product. So when you have those, you can be much faster to reuse the components, quickly apply to the applications, and also reuse these manufacturing process. So this will help you reduce the cost, and also it help you reduce the development time. So this is very important, is how do you reuse and how do you actually gathering these requirements all together and be able to respond fast and collaborating with all the players in this ecosystem.
And I agree with you that it is about an ecosystem and connecting very different sources that are not traditional suppliers to work together. But that is much easier said than done. To change an organization that is used to maybe a traditional purchasing function where every time you have to pay somebody or involve another organization, you have to go through purchasing or you have to go through certain channel. Now you're dealing with maybe government compliance organizations, utility companies, like you said, right? Traditional suppliers, software suppliers. You're trying to pull all that together. You've done that. What are some of the lessons learned that you could share so that somebody who is in a role like yours right now, leading technology in an organization in a tier one, they're thinking about how on earth do I connect this ecosystem? Some lessons learned, some tips you could share?
Absolutely, Jen. You've been in this industry long enough, and used to be, it took a long 4 years for us to developing any internal combustion engine product. And today, as we work in these electrification autonomous vehicle, the cycle of those development is much shorter. And maybe still here is 24 months, but for some of the region like China, it could be actually less than 1 year. And when you have that, you can no longer go through these traditional process of purchasing the parts. And you're dealing with a lot of industry is really coming from consumer electronics, coming from battery, coming from software, and they have a different requirements. And this is why collaboration is so important, because you need to innovate with people together. They need to understand your requirements at the same time. You got to actually be able to collaborate, innovate the solution in a much faster speed. And we do that all the time. And a lot of time times when we release the parts for these electrified vehicle, it's a very different way. And also the design, it's like a clean sheet design. It's no longer doing, you are doing the modification on what it is before. And the other thing we do is actually a lot of testing is not necessary in the vehicle. Everything has to be ready. So you're parallel doing a lot of testing. You're doing a lot of regenerative AI method, use a lot of simulation, digital twin type of a method to make sure that you can testing those the driving events much earlier before everything is ready. So it's not a serial development; it's a parallel development, and be agile and working with your suppliers and the customers together.
Yeah, that's such a change to the way that we're used to doing business. And from an OEM perspective, we still have a lot of OEMs, traditional car manufacturers, who are following the traditional purchasing route. You can't work with an OEM early on in the development of a product without knowing that you're going to be the source. You can't put millions of dollars into development of a product and then it runs through purchasing, and guess what? They find another supplier somewhere and boom, you're out because they have 3 competitive bids or something of that nature. I mean, that process doesn't work. Either we're going to all partner together and we're in this together, or we're not. And I think that the OEMs are going to have trouble with that. But some of them do a better job than others. So have you experienced some relationships at the OEM level where it truly is collaboration way, way early on in the process?
Yeah. So I would tell you, since we work with nearly every single OEM in the world, we see all kinds of OEM behavior. The nice part is we work with a lot of, I would call emerging EV company, even though they are now is so huge, right? And the pace, how they do the work, and they are not always following traditional automotive, the same process. But then we also see the other side, which is the traditional OEMs, as you said, probably some are making change now, transition as well. Others are still using the old ways. The beauty is because we know all those, right? We help both sides. We help the ones that are coming from outside the auto industry who can be fast, but a lot of times they might not always make sure they test out to every scenario, the quality. So we help them bridge this gap. Same thing with the traditional OEM. We also help them because we know how to make things faster. And all OEMs want to be successful. So when they see their suppliers work with them and provide them solution, provide them anything that they might not have thought about it, they love it. So this is how we actually work with them. And we have been very successful in this area.
Something you just said reminded me of an interview that I did a few months ago. You have to bridge the gap, really. You have to help the OEMs. That in itself, Qiong, is such a mindset shift from somebody leading in a tier 1 supplier. It was always about doing what the OEM wanted. It was never really about helping them figure this out for the future. I've interviewed another company called Haas Alert. They do the alert system that tells you when an emergency vehicle is in the area. And they are in production with Stellantis, and they're just launching with Volkswagen. And they see their role as exactly that. Their role is not to just do what the OEM tells them to do. It is to help them launch, scale, and integrate new technology. That's a huge mindset shift, Qiong, that I think is underestimated. What do you think?
You summarize really well, Jen. And as you said, when you work with your customer and help to find a solution, especially a solution not just for one application. And this is what we do. We work with all OEMs, collect all the market needs, and then think through how to simplify. In the end, it's not always more complex is better. That's my philosophy. And just really finding those solutions and then how those can apply to their specific application. And so hopefully by the time when we develop those platform product and then when they take it, they only need to apply 20, 30% of the effort to do that. that help them gain scalability because they can share even with the other OEMs what the tooling, manufacturing, capital investment, and things like that. It's absolutely a shift of mindset. And even though these are the ways that I don't think that we reinvented, but in the end, how you actually implement and truly do it and make it happen. And that's how any business will be successful, taking that approach.
Often the OEMs, they just don't see the value that they have in their supply base and what you can contribute. And you can bring knowledge to the table. And I was recently at the MEMA event listening to Terry, the president of Caresoft, and he was talking about sharing examples of designs and specifications and how in legacy automotive, we tend to design with ICE vehicle specifications in mind, even though we're designing for an EV. Whereas a Chinese OEM is starting with a clean sheet of paper. So they don't have all of those legacy processes and specifications that they're designing to. So their design tends to be far more simple and, of course, much more cost effective. But you as a supplier, you're seeing all of that and you can help the OEMs bring this knowledge to the table, right?
Absolutely, you are correct. And you are seeing more and more of those sharing happening in the industry already. I'm very sure all these traditional OEMs also partner with these EV companies, and they are looking for how can I actually launch my product much faster, because that's what the consumer wants, right? In the end, the consumer wants something that works, perform well, and also cost effective. If we are taking the same time, because in the past for ICE engine, the technology has not been really changing that much, taking more time, consumer not going to feel it. But with the EV, that's a completely different situation. You have a lot of competition around the world and you need to be fast. And in order to do that, to be successful, you have to really partner with whether you're tier one supplier, tier two, or whatever. It could be suppliers that a lot of times they are actually off the vehicle, like the cloud, the software server, and all those.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is happening for sure. So I will give you another example: EV charging infrastructure. In the States, we have been having this combo, we call CCS1 combo charging system one, that with the AC charging, which is normally you do it at home or in the office, and then the DC charging, which is the fast charging when you go travel from point to A to point B. And the charging inlet is really bulky and it's more complicated. And now, since 2023, Tesla actually decided to actually open up their charging system, which is called North America Charging System, NACS, shorted for. And so now everybody, whether it's the big threes or the Asian OEMs or the German OEMs who are having the vehicle EV in United States, they all actually decided to take this standard. So by doing that, not only now you have the same hardware. Now the fast charging DC and AC, the slow charging, they are the same hardware. You're just using software to differentiate and turn on and off. But this really add a lot of value because you have the scalability up. And so we actually very quickly working on those. And for all these OEMs who used to be on these CCS1 charging inlet, now they have a solution with an ACS solution quickly. So these are how we can, as a supplier, can bring value for them. And we also understand the different charging standards in different region and country, because electrical power system are all different. And even though you have the same vehicle, but you don't have the same charging connection system. So we have those knowledge to help them to be compatible, or how to get the best performance with the lowest cost.
Yeah, well, it's clear that you get it. You have the right mindset to support helping the OEMs with new technology. But Qiong, how do you get your entire team to think the same way? I'm sure you've got some people that are traditional legacy. They're like, we just do what the customer tells us. But now you get this mindset of, no, we need to support the customer. Your team, the people that interact with the customer, that's a different mindset. How do you nurture that? How do you encourage that?
First of all, I look at it, we are in this industry, right? And we need to be successful together. It's no longer about the command and control type of leader. And I read your Auto Culture 2.0. I so much agree with that. And it's about that how you actually make sure they understand the right purpose so they can work together with you. The organization is no longer very hierarchy. And I will tell you, even in my organization, it's more and more getting flatter. And the reason is you want to empower people to be able to make decisions. Once they understand the purpose they are doing and they can make decisions, they can go much faster. Not that only the leader knows everything. It doesn't exist anymore in this world because there is just too much knowledge, too much information. You have to actually trust your team. With that trust, you can go much faster. Building that trust also requires a lot of certainly behaviors, how you get there. But I would say the trust is the most important thing to bring your team together and go faster. And I look at my organization, sometimes it's just more like a startup. I try to not think about it as a traditional organization, more as a startup kind of organization.
And you're right. Startup culture is far more agile. It's all about speed and adaptability, resilience, moving and pivoting. To have that culture, you cannot have this fear of failure. As you started to learn and grow as a leader and empower people and trust people, you had to at some point, as a human, I know you did, this fear of what if they fail? What if they mess up? That's going to come back on you as a leader. How did you work through that so that now you are a leader who's comfortable empowering and trusting people? How did you get there?
Yeah, so I look at the 21 traits that you have listed, and one really resonated with me very well is resilience. And why resilience? Much of the success I've had in my career, the mistake that I've made, the failure that I've encountered, and a lot of challenges that I've overcome can be all directly linked to resilience. Resilience, as you said, is the most important part that have your team to help your team build the trust and maintain this trust. And I can give you a lot of examples, but I kind of look back when I first started right after my grad school. I was very fortunate to find a job working at the forefront of several key active safety technologies that today we take for granted to get our family home safe, such as the anti-lock braking system, traction control, vehicle stability control. But the development of those technology usually involve a lot of test trips all year round to some very severe winter environment around the world. And as a woman engineer in the entire department, I probably could have made a lot of excuse and avoid some of those trips, but I didn't because I went on to every those trips, not only learning, but also working on these system so that I can really actually be the expert of it. But more importantly, through this, I earned the respect and trust from my team. I showed the resilience week after week, trip after trip, and oftenly snowbank after snowbank.
Yeah.
and so as I progressed my career, I really find that this resilience is so important and it stick with me. And it's a key part of how I use it to build and maintain trust with my team, my customers, and my suppliers. And that's also how I use to apply my leadership approach. As we said about the vehicle electrification, for some of us being around for a long time, this industry has not been always a smooth ride. There's up and down. Yeah. And we have made a great headway. But if you really looking at it, there is a long way to go. But if you look at it today, globally, there are 23 million electrified vehicles on the road globally. And we have like 85 million vehicles total. And that's actually a pretty big number. But majority of those are in Asia Pacific and specifically in China. So in United States, we are quite behind. We have about 2 million. And 50% of those are pure battery electrical vehicle, and the other 50% are split between hybrid and the plug-in hybrid. So now the question is how we can catch up. And I think resilience has been, a key part for this journey, because as someone who truly passionate about this transition, I realize only the resilience people and resilience company will have the fortitude to lead us through. And because the resilience give us the mindset of believing in yourself and believing in your team, and resilience keeps us going forward and never giving up until you succeed. And that's what I see. Yeah, even though maybe today it's only 2 million, I'm very sure eventually we will have more and more on the road and we will succeed in this industry.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a relationship there between resilience and this fear of failure. Because if you're resilient, you might have a little bit of fear of failure, but you don't let it stop you from taking action. That's the key. Because in traditional automotive, where there's fear of failure, you're going to be, you might be afraid to make a decision. You might be afraid somebody's not going to like it or that you're going to get fired. And you can't have that. So when you're resilient, you're not afraid to make a decision. And if you do fail, you get back up and you keep on going. But the leader and the culture of the organization supports you in doing that, isn't it? That's what makes it work.
Yes, and you have to demonstrate that set of examples, and eventually more and more people will follow. The other thing, resilience is the most important when you are in the difficult time. It's not when everything goes perfect. And this is what, as you said, resilience actually help you. Even when you have a failure, make mistake, it will have you keep going.
What happens when somebody makes a mistake on your team? How do you handle that?
We all make mistakes. We are human beings. One of the things is we learn from that. And one thing is the success is actually built upon the mistakes you make based on the failure that you had. So I do not see, making mistakes is a really issue. So for me is you just trying to learn what happened. How can you continue to improve upon and how to not make this same mistake again. And there is always so much to learn from that.
Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right. But again, it's easier said than done. And a lot of leaders have trouble accepting and viewing mistakes. Again, it comes back to mindset, right? To seeing mistakes as a building block to success. And innovation, by definition, is you try something and you fail, and you tweak it and you fail, and you tweak it and you fail until you get it right. And it makes me laugh sometimes, Qiong, when I see people in the tier one space, they talk about innovation and they go, oh, yeah, that's on our VP of engineering's agenda. Well, it's not an agenda item. It is a culture. Either you have a culture that nurtures and promotes innovation, again, lack of fear of failure, or you don't. What are your thoughts on culture of innovation?
Yeah, I so much agree with you, Jen, your points on this culture of innovation. And also the early on about the not afraid of making mistakes, right? And they are kind of go together. This made me think about the book from Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. And if you think about whether it's about our business or our life, it is really an infinite game. There is really no winner or loser, and there is only what's ahead and what's behind. Especially in business, when we have leaders embracing the infinite mindset, we are more likely to build a strong, innovative, and inspiring organization culture. As you said, the culture of innovation. And this is the same for life. All of us come and go. Our lives are finite, but really life is infinite. We are just finite players in this infinite game of life. So I really think about that a lot of those apply to me for business very much. And I don't think about it as a win or lose in my business. I think about it as how I perpetuate the business. How do I actually make sure this business is always keep going? We are providing the value to our customer, to the consumer, and also to the business, the shareholders, because we wanted to make sure that we bring the profit. And so we can be a successful business continue on, it needs to be sustainable.
Again, that's another huge mindset shift. Because, Qiong, come on, we've been in this industry a long time, right? It was all about winning and losing. When I look back through all my experience in supply chain, it was all about, debit the supplier, right? Win or lose. Get this money. If not, dispute, go to litigation, escalation. It's all about winning or losing. And it's all about who's right and who's wrong. And that is not the game that we need to be playing. As Simon Sinek says, it is an infinite game, but that is a huge mindset shift. But when you as the leader at the top of your game believe that, and you get a whole team of people behind you believing that, then you can run fast, right? You can really make it happen.
Absolutely. Jen, I can't agree with you more. This is absolutely the case for my team and for many of the teams at the TE Connectivity. Actually, my company set up a division that really make the world safer and more sustainable. And all of us believe in it. And we take this to our everyday life. And when we behave with our team, customers, and suppliers, and then people see it and people actually appreciate it. And that's why I think in the end, it's a win-win situation. You do not look at it as who's winner, who's a loser.
Yeah, I love that. If I were to summarize what I've learned from you today, here we go. Let's see if I get it right. So to answer the question I opened with, which what does it take to lead a technology organization in automotive industry today? First and foremost, it's mindset. It is about the infinite game. It is no longer about this transactional win-lose type mentality. So that's the first thing. You have to view the business differently. Secondly, you have to view your role with the OEM as one of support and coaching. That's a huge shift. Then you have to establish a vision, get your team behind that vision, get used to the idea of an ecosystem, no longer this linear buyer-supplier relationship all the way down the chain. Figure out how to connect all these very different types of organizations to help you move fast. Then the ultimate leadership requirement or leadership trait to succeed is to trust and empower your team and show role model resilience, but make sure that you build upon the failures to the ultimate success. Again, if you're playing the infinite game, that's going to come, not naturally, but that's going to be part of the process. So in my mind, that summarizes your beliefs on leadership, technology, and automotive. Did I miss anything?
You summarize so well. You got all the mindset, the culture, the behavior resilience, how to build trust with your team, how to collaborate with others. I think you really cover everything, Jen. It's perfect.
Well, thank you. Now, what advice would you have for leaders out there in the industry today? I mean, let's face it, we're all a bit scared right now, particularly in Detroit, because we've got the Chinese OEMs that are sweeping up the market and taking over the industry. So there's a lot of culture change that needs to happen. Leaders that are embarking on this journey, maybe partway through this journey, what advice would you have for them?
I would say, first of all, believe in what you are doing. And second of all, continue have this resilience behavior to achieve that and enjoy it and don't be afraid. And I think we are somewhat behind in certain area, but we have so much to offer. We have so much talent. We have so much knowledge. And we also have a lot of resource actually in the States that we can achieve. And we have one of the biggest, best EV company in the world, very successfully everywhere, not just in the United States. And I think our industry, the advice I would say is we need to actually work even more so with all the traditional OEMs along with the newer players. And we need to push each other and also collaborate.
Yeah.
And this is how we can get there faster. And I'm sure we will get there. And in the end, I have to say, it's not like every vehicle needs to be EV. it really needs to be looking at what is really makes sense. If in long distance, long haul, you're not going to stop all the time. Is the big battery is really the best thing? Probably not. But there is a lot of those applications really actually needed. I do see we have a lot of opportunity out there, and we can do well, as an industry together.
No, I totally agree. Well, Qiong, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jan. It's really my pleasure.